We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Perfect Illusions. Robert Kincaid stood at his drafting table, fingers tracing the precise lines of his latest architectural design. At 28, he'd earned his position at Morrison & Associates through raw talent and relentless dedication. No family connections, no inherited privileges, just pure determination and countless nights spent perfecting his craft. Kincaid, these revisions are exactly what the client wanted, James Morrison said, dropping a stack of approved designs on his desk. Keep this up, and you'll be looking at a promotion by year's end. Robert nodded, suppressing a smile. He'd stayed late 3 nights straight to perfect those designs, fueled by black coffee and the drive that had defined his entire life. His father's words echoed in his mind. Nobody's going to hand you anything in this world, son. You want something? You work until your fingers bleed for it. That evening, seeking escape from the office's fluorescent lights, Robert found himself at the Whitney Gallery's newest exhibition. He wasn't particularly interested in art, but the change of scenery offered a welcome respite from blueprints and client meetings. Fascinating interpretation of urban decay, isn't it? A voice like honey wrapped in silk drew his attention to the woman standing beside him. She gestured toward a canvas splashed with abstract shapes in violent reds and muted grays. Honestly, it looks like someone threw paint at a wall and called it art, Robert replied, earning a genuine laugh from the stranger. Adriana Reeves, she introduced herself, extending a manicured hand. And I'm supposed to convince people that this is worth their investment. Robert Kincaid. I design buildings that actually stay upright, unlike whatever that's supposed to be. He noticed how her green eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled, how her auburn hair caught the gallery lights. An architect? Now that's real art, Adriana said, moving closer. I'd love to hear more about your work. Maybe over coffee. That coffee date turned into dinner, which led to weekend adventures exploring Portland's hidden corners. Adriana matched Robert's ambition with her own fierce drive. As a marketing executive at Stevens & Partners, she approached each campaign, turning unknown artists into overnight sensations. We're unstoppable together, she whispered one night, curled against him on his apartment's balcony. You build the structures, I'll sell the dream. Their wedding, a year later, reflected their shared vision of elegance without ostentation. Robert watched Adriana walk down the aisle, her dress a simple sheath of white silk, and felt the satisfaction of knowing he'd earned this happiness through his own merit. The next 3 years unfolded like a perfectly executed business plan. They bought a modest house in the Laurelhurst neighborhood, its 1920s charm masking good bones that Robert knew he could transform. Weekends became a blur of renovation projects, their shared passion for improvement extending beyond their careers. Pass me that wrench, Robert called from under the kitchen sink, while Adriana consulted their renovation checklist. If we finish the plumbing today, we can start on the cabinets tomorrow. Already ordered the hardware, Adriana replied, her heels clicking on the temporary plywood flooring. The supplier gave us a great deal. Same ones we used in the Jefferson Street flip. Their house-flipping side business started small, but quickly gained momentum. Robert handled the structural work and design, while Adriana's marketing expertise ensured maximum returns on their investments. They were building an empire, brick by brick, dollar by dollar. Max, their golden retriever, completed their picture of domestic bliss. The dog's endless energy forced them to maintain their fitness routine, leading to shared morning runs and weekend hikes. Their friends dubbed them the Power Couple, a title that made Robert proud while simultaneously reminding him to work harder, push further. The Carmichael account is massive, Adriana announced over dinner one evening, her eyes bright with excitement. The agency's bringing in a new creative director from New York to handle it. Michael Winters, you should see his portfolio. He's revolutionized campaigns for major brands. Robert nodded, focused on reviewing plans for their latest property acquisition. Sounds impressive. Just don't let him steal all your thunder. Please, you know me better than that, Adriana laughed, reaching across the table to steal a bite from his plate. I'm thinking we could host a welcome dinner for him and his wife. Show them some Portland hospitality. Whatever you think is best, Robert agreed, not looking up from his papers. Later, he would curse himself for missing the subtle shift in her tone, the too casual way she suggested the dinner. Michael Winters arrived at Stevens and Partners like a hurricane disguised as a summer breeze. Tall, with carefully styled dark hair and designer suits that cost more than most people's monthly salary, he brought an air of Manhattan sophistication to the Portland agency. Robert, right? Michael's handshake was firm, calculated. Adriana's told me so much about you. That Pacific Heights development you're working on, brilliant use of sustainable materials while maintaining luxury appeal. The welcome dinner stretched late into the night, wine flowing as Michael regaled them with stories of New York's advertising world. His wife, Rebecca, sat quietly beside him, occasionally touching his arm when his gestures became too animated. She was pretty in a subtle way, with gentle eyes and a nurse's practical approach to conversation. The hours are brutal, Rebecca confided to Robert while their spouses discussed campaign strategies. Michael's always at the office, but that's what it takes to stay on top in this industry, right? Robert watched Adriana lean forward, laughing at something Michael said. Her cheeks were flushed from wine, her hands gesturing expressively as she added to the story. He felt a flicker of unease but dismissed it. They were professionals, colleagues working on a major account. Nothing more. The changes were gradual, almost imperceptible at first. Adriana's phone began to buzz more frequently during dinner. She started attending more client meetings, networking events that ran late into the evening. Their morning runs became solo exercises as she claimed to need extra sleep after late nights at the office. The Carmichael campaign is in its crucial phase, she explained, kissing him quickly before rushing out the door. Michael and I need to perfect the pitch. You understand, right? Robert did understand, until he didn't. Until the night he reached for her in bed and she turned away, claiming exhaustion. Until he noticed her changing passwords on her phone. Until their renovations sat untouched, their weekend projects abandoned in favor of emergency client meetings. You've been distant lately, he said one morning, watching her apply makeup. It's just work stress, Adriana replied, not meeting his eyes in the mirror. Once we land Carmichael, things will calm down. Trust me. Trust. Robert had built his life on concrete foundations, on calculations and measurements he could verify. Trust was a variable he couldn't control, and for the first time since meeting Adriana, he felt the ground beneath him shift. Chapter 2. The Betrayal. James and Catherine Monroe's wedding was a carefully orchestrated celebration of old money meeting new ambition. The Sentinel Hotel's ballroom glowed with thousands of white lights, the air heavy with the scent of roses and anticipation. Robert adjusted his bow tie, watching Adriana laugh with the other bridesmaids, her burgundy dress highlighting the curves he once knew by heart. She looks beautiful tonight, Thomas Bennett, a senior partner at Stevens and Partners, commented, joining Robert at the bar. You're a lucky man, Kincaid. Thank you, Robert replied automatically, his eyes tracking Adriana as she moved through the crowd. She was radiant, but something about her smile seemed practiced, performing for an audience he couldn't see. The ceremony had been picture-perfect, Catherine resplendent in vintage lace as she pledged her life to James. Robert had felt Adriana's absence beside him in the pew, her duties as bridesmaid separating them physically, and he now realized symbolically. Michael Winters arrived fashionably late to the reception, offering elegant apologies about a client call running long. Rebecca wasn't with him. Their youngest had a fever, he explained, smoothing his already immaculate tie. Robert! Michael clapped him on the shoulder with familiar ease. Hold on to your architect's ruler. Wait until you see the campaign mock-ups Adriana and I have developed. Revolutionary stuff. Dinner passed in a blur of toasts and polite conversation. Robert noticed how Adriana barely touched her food, her leg bouncing with nervous energy under the table. She kept checking her phone, smiling at messages he couldn't see. Everything okay? He asked quietly. Perfect, she replied, squeezing his hand briefly before turning to chat with Catherine's mother. The dancing began after dinner, the band striking up classic romance songs that pulled couples to the floor. Robert watched as Michael cut through the crowd with practiced grace, heading straight for their table. Mrs. Kincaid, Michael bowed slightly, extending his hand to Adriana. Would you honor me with a dance? Strictly professional, of course. We can discuss the Carmichael revisions. Adriana glanced at Robert, a flicker of something. Guilt? Defiance? Crossing her face. Just one dance, she said, already standing. Business never sleeps, right? Robert nursed his champagne, making small talk with other guests while keeping one eye on the dance floor. He saw Michael pull Adriana closer than necessary for a professional dance, saw her hand rest on his chest rather than his shoulder. They were talking intently, their faces drawing nearer with each turn. They've been spending a lot of time together, Catherine's cousin Emma remarked, following Robert's gaze. At the agency, late nights, weekend meetings. The band transitioned to a slower song, the lights dimming to create an intimate atmosphere. Robert stood, intending to cut in, to reclaim his wife from whatever game she was playing. But before he could move, it happened. Michael's hand slid to Adriana's lower back, drawing her against him. She looked up, their eyes locked, and then they were kissing. Not a quick peck, not a friendly gesture, but a passionate embrace that spoke of familiar intimacy and hidden desires. The champagne flute slipped from Robert's hand, shattering on the floor. The sound cracked through the romantic haze like a gunshot, drawing all eyes to the unfolding drama. Phones appeared, recording the moment when the perfect facade cracked. Adriana jerked away from Michael, her face flushed with more than just embarrassment. She looked around wildly until her gaze found Robert, and the color drained from her cheeks. Rob, she started, taking a step toward him. I can explain. Robert held up a hand, silencing her. The room had gone quiet, the band faltering to an awkward stop. He could hear Rebecca's sob from somewhere behind him, the rustle of her dress as she fled the ballroom. Without a word, Robert turned and walked out. His steps were steady, his posture rigid with controlled fury. Behind him, he could hear Adriana calling his name, her voice growing increasingly desperate. He kept walking, past concerned friends, past the hotel staff, past the valet who tried to offer him his car ticket. The night air hit him like a physical blow, but he welcomed it. The pain helped him focus, helped him push aside the image of his wife in another man's arms. He walked for hours, his dress shoes pinching, his bow tie now hanging loose around his neck. His phone buzzed continuously, Adriana's face lighting up the screen again and again until he finally shut it off. He found himself in front of their house, their perfect renovation project, their shared dream turned nightmare. Max greeted him at the door, tail wagging uncertainly at his master's unusual demeanor. Robert scratched the dog's ears, drawing comfort from the simple, unconditional affection. At least you're loyal, buddy, he murmured, moving through the dark house to his home office. He sat at his desk, the same desk where he drafted plans for their future together. Now, he would use it to plan something very different. Robert powered up his laptop, opened his email, and began to write. First, he contacted his bank, changing passwords and freezing joint accounts. Next, he emailed Diana Matthews, the city's most ruthless divorce attorney. He'd met her at a charity gala last year, had been impressed by her shark-like approach to legal battles. The text from Adriana came at 3 a.m. Baby, you know you're the only one for me, right? He meant nothing. Robert stared at the words until they blurred. 3 years of marriage, countless promises, shared dreams, all destroyed by a kiss that meant nothing. He thought of all the late nights, the changed passwords, the distant behavior. The pieces clicked into place. His response was to open James's shared cloud storage, locate the video of the kiss that someone had helpfully uploaded, and forward it to Rebecca Winters. Then he blocked Adriana's number, turned off his phone, and began removing her photos from his office walls. Max whined softly, sensing his master's distress. Robert paused in his task, looking down at the loyal animal. It's just you and me now, boy, he said quietly. But don't worry. We're going to make them regret ever thinking they could play us for fools. The sun was rising when Robert finally allowed himself to rest, but his mind was clear. He had already started formulating a plan, one that would use all his skills, his attention to detail, his strategic thinking, his unwavering determination. Adriana and Michael had built their betrayal on lies and secret meetings. He would destroy them with truth and ruthless exposure. They thought they knew him, the dedicated architect, the understanding husband, the man who believed in working hard and playing fair. They were about to learn that betrayal had a price, and Robert Kincaid intended to collect payment in full. Chapter 3. Aftermath and Revelations. The morning after the wedding, Robert sat in his home office, surrounded by the evidence of his carefully constructed life. Client files, property documents, and renovation plans lay scattered across his desk. Paper monuments to the future he and Adriana had planned together. Max lay at his feet, offering silent support as Robert began the systematic process of documenting their shared history. His phone, now powered back on, buzzed with messages from concerned friends. Each notification revealed another piece of the puzzle he hadn't known he was solving. "Man, I should have told you sooner," James's message read. "I saw them at Vintage Room last month. They said it was a client meeting, but the way they were sitting..." Another text, this one from Sarah at Stevens and Partners. "Those emergency client calls? They were meeting at the Heathman Hotel. Everyone at the office knew, but we didn't know how to tell you." Robert's jaw clenched as he screenshotted each message, creating a digital trail of betrayal. He opened his laptop, accessing their joint credit card statements. The patterns emerged like blueprint lines. Hotel charges disguised as business expenses, intimate dinners hidden under the label of client meetings. A knock at the door interrupted his investigation. Rebecca Winter stood on his porch, her eyes red but her posture straight. "I got your email," she said without preamble. "May I come in?" Robert led her to the kitchen, where he poured them both strong coffee. Rebecca's hands shook slightly as she held her mug, but her voice was steady. "6 months," she said. "They've been seeing each other for 6 months. I found receipts, hotel charges, mysterious weekend conferences that only they attended." "How did you know?" Robert asked, leaning against the counter. "Little things. Michael changed his email password. Started working out more. Bought new cologne." Rebecca's laugh was bitter. "He even got LASIK surgery. Said it was for work, but now I know. Adriana once mentioned she hated men in glasses." They spent the morning comparing notes, building a timeline of deception. Rebecca had screenshots of suspicious text messages, photos from company events showing lingering touches and secret glances. Robert added these to his growing file of evidence. "I want to destroy him," Rebecca said quietly, her nurse's gentle demeanor hardening. "Not just divorce him. I want him to lose everything." Robert studied her, seeing the same cold fury he felt reflected in her eyes. "Then let's do this right. No emotional reactions, no messy scenes. We plan, we document, and we strike when they least expect it." His phone rang. Catherine Monroe. He put it on speaker. "Robert? Oh God, I'm so sorry about last night. But there's something you need to know." Catherine's voice cracked. "Adriana, she's been using my guest house for their meetings. Said she needed a quiet place to work on campaigns. I found her wine glasses. They're evidence. God, I feel so stupid. She used my friendship to facilitate their affair." "How long?" Robert's voice remained controlled, but his knuckles whitened around his coffee mug. "At least 3 months. I have security camera footage." Catherine paused. "I'm sending it to you now." "And Robert?" "I saved the access logs too, dates, times, everything." After ending the call, Robert turned to Rebecca. "We need a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. We need someone who'll go for the throat." "I know exactly who you need," Rebecca said, pulling out her phone. "Diana Matthews. She handled my sister's divorce last year. Destroyed her cheating husband in court. Left him with nothing but his socks." Robert nodded, already drafting an email to Diana's office. His architectural training had taught him that every strong structure needed a solid foundation. This revenge would be no different. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Thomas Bennett, looking uncomfortable in casual weekend clothes. "I came as soon as I could," Thomas said, walking into the kitchen. "The board needs to know about this. Michael's behavior, it's not the first time. There were incidents in New York and LA, all swept under the rug because of his talent." Robert gestured for him to continue. "He's been using company resources to fund their meetings. Expense reports, client entertainment budgets, all manipulated. Adriana's been helping him hide it in the accounting." Thomas pulled out a USB drive. Here's everything I've gathered so far. Dates, receipts, doctor reports. Rebecca let out a shaky breath. He used our children's tuition money for hotel rooms. Told me it was going to their college funds. The afternoon turned into evening as they built their case. Friends arrived with more pieces of the puzzle. Text messages, photos, witness accounts. Each revelation hardened Robert's resolve. His phone buzzed again. Adriana had switched to email since he'd blocked her number. "Robert, please. We need to talk. What you saw. It wasn't what you think. Michael and I, we just got carried away. It was a mistake. You know I love you. Remember everything we've built together? Our homes, our business, our plans? Don't throw it all away over one kiss." He read the email twice, noting her careful choice of words. One kiss. As if the months of lies and secret meetings meant nothing. As if their entire marriage hadn't been built on a foundation of deception. "She's trying to minimize it," Rebecca observed, reading over his shoulder. Classic cheater's tactic. Michael sent me a similar message. Blamed the champagne, called it a moment of weakness. Robert stayed silent, forwarding the email to Diana Matthews. Then he opened their shared renovation company's accounts. Adriana had been handling the books, another trust he now questioned. "Here," he said, pointing to several irregular transactions. "She's been moving money around. Small amounts, but they add up. Probably funding their little rendezvous." The sun had set when Rebecca finally left, armed with copies of all their evidence. Thomas had already gone, promising to begin the internal investigation at Stevens and Partners first thing Monday morning. Robert stood in his home office, surrounded by the wreckage of his marriage. Photos of their happy moments mocked him from the walls. He took them down one by one, placing them face down in a box. Max whined softly, nudging his hand. "You knew, didn't you, boy?" Robert scratched behind the dog's ears. "All those nights she came home smelling like different cologne. You knew she'd betrayed us." His phone buzzed one final time that night. A message from an unknown number. "Mr. Kincaid, this is Diana Matthews. I received your evidence. I have an opening tomorrow at 8 a.m. Bring everything you've gathered. Leave nothing out. We're going to make them regret the day they decided to cross you." Robert smiled for the first time since the wedding. It wasn't a smile of joy or amusement. It was the smile of a man who had finished mourning and was ready for war. He spent the rest of the night organizing the evidence, creating timelines, and documenting every instance of betrayal. The architect in him appreciated the symmetry. Adriana and Michael had built their affair on lies and secrets. He would destroy it with truth and exposure. When dawn broke, Robert was ready. He had transferred his half of their renovation business profits to a separate account, documented every suspicious transaction, and prepared a detailed record of their joint assets. Diana Matthews would have everything she needed to begin dismantling the life Adriana had so carelessly thrown away. He walked Max one last time around their neighborhood, past the houses they'd renovated together, past the coffee shop where they'd planned their future. Each familiar sight strengthened his resolve. Adriana hadn't just betrayed their marriage. She betrayed every dream they'd built together. As he prepared to leave for Diana's office, Robert took one final look at their home. The house they'd transformed together stood as a testament to what they could have achieved. Now it would become ground zero for a different kind of renovation, the systematic deconstruction of Adriana's carefully crafted world. The foundation was laid. The plans were drawn. And Robert Kincaid, who had built his life on hard work and determination, was ready to show his wife and her lover exactly what happened to those who mistook his integrity for weakness. Chapter 4. Strategic Moves. Diana Matthews' office exuded power through minimalism. No family photos, no decorative artwork, just law degrees and a wall of case victories. Robert sat across from her massive desk, watching as she reviewed the evidence he'd gathered. "This is thorough," Diana said, her red nails tapping against the stack of documents. "Most clients come to me emotional, disorganized. You've given me ammunition." "I'm an architect," Robert replied. "We build things step by step or they collapse." Diana leaned forward. "Let me be clear, I don't just win divorces. I annihilate cheaters. My fee is substantial. Money isn't an issue." Robert's voice hardened. "I want her to lose everything she values. Career, reputation, social standing, all of it. The intercom buzzed. Mrs. Winters is here. Rebecca entered, carrying her own file of evidence. Her nurse's scrubs were hidden under a blazer, transforming her from caregiver to warrior. Michael's been busy, she announced, spreading photos across Diana's desk. These go back 2 years. Different women, different cities. All employees or clients. Diana examined the photos, her smile sharpening. Serial predator with a pattern of workplace exploitation. The agencies will want to bury this, unless we make it too costly to ignore. Robert studied one photo, Michael with a young account executive, his hand possessively on her waist. We need more. Inside information. Already handled, Rebecca said. Sarah from HR owes me. She's been documenting their misuse of company resources. Expense reports, fake client meetings, even company credit cards used for hotel rooms. Diana began organizing the evidence into categories. We attack on multiple fronts. Professional misconduct, financial fraud, breach of contract. Robert, you'll file first. Once that hits, Rebecca follows with her custody suit. They won't have time to hide assets or craft a defense. I want full control of our renovation business, Robert stated. Adriana's been skimming funds to finance their affair. Smart man. Diana made notes. We'll hire a forensic accountant, track money movement patterns, build a case for financial misconduct. Rebecca's phone chimed. Thomas Bennett wants to meet. Says he has board meeting minutes we should see. Set it up, Robert commanded. And Rebecca, contact Michael's previous employers. He's done this before. There will be settlements, NDAs. Diana watched their exchange with approval. You two understand what most clients don't. Revenge is a dish best served with paperwork. Build the case brick by brick. Leave no escape route. They spent hours plotting strategy. Diana's assistant brought coffee, then lunch, then more coffee as they mapped out their attack plan. Your friends at the wedding, Diana addressed Robert. How many recorded the kiss? At least a dozen. James has been collecting the videos. Good. Public humiliation works in our favor. Judges appreciate visual evidence. She turned to Rebecca. Your children. How's their relationship with Michael's? Rebecca's face tightened. He's missed 3 weekends this month. Too busy with work, meaning Adriana. The kids notice. Document everything. Missed visits, canceled plans, emotional impact. We'll use it for custody. Robert's phone buzzed. Adriana, trying to bypass his block, through a different number. The message was desperate. Please talk to me. We can fix this. Remember our dreams, our plans. Don't throw it all away. He showed it to Diana, who smiled like a predator. Perfect. Let her keep messaging. Each attempt shows desperation, makes her look unstable. Don't respond. What about the Chicago agency? Rebecca asked. Michael's been bragging about his new position. Leave that to me, Diana replied. I have contacts in their HR department. Once they learn about his pattern of sexual misconduct, that offer will disappear. They worked through the afternoon, building their case. Robert shared financial records, property documents, text messages. Rebecca contributed medical records, showing her children's stress symptoms coinciding with Michael's affair timeline. One more thing, Diana said as they prepared to leave. They'll try to control the narrative. Paint themselves as star-crossed lovers trapped in loveless marriages. We need to get ahead of it. Catherine Monroe, Robert suggested. Adriana's oldest friend. After they ruin her wedding, she'll want payback. The bride? Diana's eyes gleamed. Perfect. A sympathetic witness with years of inside knowledge. Get her statement first, before they can pressure her to stay quiet. As they left Diana's office, Rebecca touched Robert's arm. Thank you. Most men would have just walked away. Let them have their happiness. But they deserve to pay for what they've done. Robert's response was cold. This isn't about happiness. It's about consequences. They thought they could take what was mine, make me look weak. I'm going to show them exactly who they're dealing with. That evening, Robert met Thomas Bennett at a private club downtown. The senior partner looked nervous, glancing around as if expecting to be observed. The board's been building a case against Michael, Thomas confided, sliding a USB drive across the table. Sexual harassment complaints, expense account fraud, client complaints about inappropriate behavior. We kept it quiet to avoid scandal. But now you have a public spectacle anyway, Robert finished. What's on the drive? Everything. Internal complaints, hushed-up incidents from his previous agencies. The man's a predator, Robert. He's done this before multiple times. Uses his position to seduce vulnerable employees, then discards them. And Adriana? Thomas sighed. She's not his first married conquest. He has a pattern, targets ambitious women, convinces them he's their ticket to bigger opportunities. Once he gets what he wants, he moves on, usually to a different city. Robert pocketed the drive. The Chicago position? His escape route. But it won't happen. Not after the board sees this evidence. Later that night, Robert sat in his home office, reviewing the files Thomas had provided. Each document revealed a new layer of Michael's corruption and Adriana's willing participation in the deception. His phone buzzed again. Another message from Adriana. You're being unreasonable. It was one mistake. We can work through this. Robert looked at the evidence spread across his desk, then at Max sleeping peacefully nearby. One mistake, he muttered. Let's see if that story holds up in court. He began drafting emails to key witnesses, setting up meetings to record their statements. Each word, each piece of evidence, was another nail in the coffin of Adriana and Michael's carefully constructed lies. The storm was gathering. Soon, they would learn that some mistakes can't be undone. Some betrayals can't be forgiven. Robert Kincaid wasn't just going to divorce his wife. He was going to dismantle her entire world, brick by brick, until nothing remained of the life she'd thrown away. Chapter 5. The Counterattack. Robert knew the counterattack was coming before it began. Adriana's first move was predictable. A tearful lunch with their mutual friends, spinning a tale of emotional neglect and newfound true love. She's telling everyone you were cold, distant, Sarah reported during their clandestine meeting in a coffee shop far from the agency. Says you cared more about work than her, that Michael understood her in ways you never did. Robert sipped his coffee, expression unchanged. And what evidence does she offer of this supposed neglect? That's the thing. Sarah leaned forward, lowering her voice. People are seeing through it. We all remember the dinner parties, the renovations you did together, how you supported her career. It's not matching up with her poor me narrative. Michael's approach was more aggressive. He cornered James Monroe at their gym, attempting to strong-arm him into deleting the wedding videos. He threatened to ruin my business connections, James told Robert over the phone. Said he could make sure my firm never gets another major advertising contract. Record everything, Robert instructed. Forward any threats to Diana. We're building a pattern of intimidation. The agency became a battleground of whispered allegations and taking sides. Michael used his position as creative director to reassign projects, punishing those who remained loyal to Robert and Rebecca. Diana Matthews called an emergency meeting. They're getting desperate, she announced, spreading new documents across her desk. Michael's trying to access old personnel files, probably looking for dirt on potential witnesses. Lucky for us, HR is on our side. Rebecca arrived, her face tight with anger. He's filed for joint custody, claiming I'm an unfit mother because of my work schedule. Says the children need a more stable home environment, meaning his new life with Adriana. Perfect. Diana's smile was razor sharp. He just handed us ammunition. Robert, those hotel receipts you found? Robert pulled out his laptop, opening a spreadsheet. 15 different occasions when he was with Adriana instead of attending his children's events. All documented with credit card statements and witness accounts. They worked late into the night, countering each of Michael and Adriana's moves with devastating evidence. When Adriana claimed financial hardship, Robert produced records of her secret accounts. When Michael alleged parental dedication, Rebecca revealed a calendar of missed obligations. The next morning, Robert received an unexpected call from Julian Hayes, the artist whose exhibition had introduced him to Adriana. Your wife and her lover tried to pressure me into lying for them, Julian said without preamble. Wanted me to say you were aggressive, possessive. I told them to shove it. I remember how you supported my early work, bought pieces when nobody else would. I appreciate your loyalty, Robert replied. Would you be willing to make a statement? Better than that, Julian laughed darkly. I recorded their attempt to bribe me. Figured it might be useful. The recording proved invaluable. Diana added it to their growing arsenal. Another example of Michael and Adriana's attempts to manipulate the truth. Their biggest counterattack came through social media. Adriana posted a carefully crafted statement about finding true love and breaking free from controlling relationships. Michael shared it, adding his own spin about supporting each other through difficult transitions. Robert's response was silence. He let their words hang in the digital void while he continued gathering evidence. Their mutual friends, disgusted by the public display, began unfollowing them in droves. They're trying to rewrite history, Rebecca observed during another strategy session. Make themselves the heroes of their own story. Let them. Robert's voice was steel. The truth has receipts. Diana organized their countermoves. We released the financial evidence first, then the workplace misconduct documentation. Follow with witness statements about their public behavior. Build a narrative of calculated deception, not star-crossed love. The battle escalated when Michael attempted to claim credit for Robert and Adriana's successful renovation projects. He's telling potential employers that he was the business mind behind your flips, Thomas reported. Says Adriana's marketing and his creative direction made the business profitable. Robert responded by releasing detailed project documentation, permits, designs, financial records, all bearing his signature and professional seal. The evidence painted a clear picture. Michael was attempting to steal credit for others' work, a pattern that echoed through his career. Adriana's next move was to approach Rebecca directly, woman to woman, at the hospital where she worked. She ambushed me during my shift, Rebecca recounted, still shaking with fury. Tried to convince me that we should support each other through this transition. Said we could all be one big, happy modern family. Diana's eyes narrowed. She approached you at work? That's harassment. We'll add it to the custody filing. The weeks passed in a blur of legal maneuvers and countermaneuvers. Michael and Adriana's attempts to spin the narrative grew, increasingly desperate, as evidence mounted against them. They're planning to go public with allegations of business fraud, Sarah warned during another secret meeting. Michael's building a case that you mishandled renovation company funds. Robert almost smiled. Let them try. I've had forensic accountants reviewing our books since day one. The only financial misconduct, they'll find leads straight back to Adriana. The breaking point came when Michael attempted to leverage his connection to the Chicago agency. He leaked news of his upcoming position, implying that Robert and Rebecca's actions were motivated by jealousy over his success. Diana's response was swift and devastating. She released a carefully curated set of documents to the Chicago firm's board, evidence of Michael's pattern of workplace misconduct, financial irregularities, and the brewing scandal. The offer's been rescinded, she announced with satisfaction. They're officially going in a different direction. Seems they don't want a sexual predator in their executive suite. Robert watched Michael and Adriana's carefully constructed escape plan crumble. Without the Chicago position, they were trapped in Portland, facing the consequences of their actions. They thought they could control the story, he told Rebecca as they left Diana's office. They forgot that actions have consequences, and evidence doesn't lie. The counterattack had failed. Each attempt to discredit Robert and Rebecca only strengthened their case, adding new evidence of desperate manipulation to their arsenal. The storm was intensifying, and Michael and Adriana were running out of moves. Their dream of escaping to Chicago with their reputations intact had shattered. Now they faced the reality of their choices, with no allies left to shield them from the coming reckoning. Chapter 6: Unexpected Allies. The envelope arrived at Diana's office unmarked, containing years of private correspondence between Adriana and Catherine Monroe. The bride whose wedding had been ruined became their most valuable asset. I've known Adriana since we were children, Catherine explained, sitting in Diana's office. She's always had a pattern, pursuing what others have, then discarding it once she gets it. But I never thought she'd do this to Robert. The conversations revealed a darker side to Adriana's character. Messages bragging about past conquests, strategies for manipulating men, discussions of previous affairs. All carefully hidden from Robert during their courtship. There's more, Catherine added, pulling out her phone. Adriana's been confiding in me about Michael for months. I saved everything. She wasn't just having an affair. They were plotting, calculating how to maximize their benefits when they left their spouses. Diana reviewed the messages, her expression growing harder. This proves premeditation. They weren't victims of circumstance. They planned this exit strategy in detail. Robert absorbed each revelation without visible emotion, but his grip on his coffee cup tightened. Any mention of the renovation business? Yes, Catherine's voice was bitter. She called it your convenient funding source. Use profits to finance their hotels, their gifts, their secret dates. She thought it was clever, hiding their expenses in business accounts. The evidence mounted as more unexpected allies emerged. Thomas Bennett arrived with board meeting minutes, revealing Michael's pattern of using company resources for personal gain. He's been doing this for years, Thomas explained. Creates fake client meetings to cover his affairs, charges personal expenses to company accounts. We've had complaints, but he always managed to charm his way out of trouble. Robert studied the documents, and Adriana helped him hide it. She's been falsifying marketing reports, creating fake campaigns to justify their meetings. Several junior employees have come forward, afraid of being implicated in the fraud. The most surprising ally emerged from Adriana's own family. Her younger sister, Melissa, contacted Robert through Diana, offering a history of Adriana's deceptions. I can't cover for her anymore, Melissa declared during their meeting. She's done this before, in college in her early career. Finds successful men, makes them fall in love with her, then discards them when someone more advantageous comes along. Diana took detailed notes. You have proof of these previous incidents? Melissa pulled out a worn diary. I've documented everything. Dates, names, patterns. I kept hoping she'd change, but when I heard what she did to you, Robert, she pushed the diary across the table. Use it. Make sure she can't do this to anyone else. The diary revealed a calculated pattern of manipulation that stretched back years. Adriana had refined her techniques, learning to target men who could advance her socially or professionally. There's something else you should know, Melissa added hesitantly. She's been recording your conversations, Robert, planning to edit them to make you sound controlling. She's done it before, twists people's words to support her narrative. Robert's expression remained unchanged, but his voice carried deadly focus. When did this start? After she met Michael. He taught her the technique. Said it could be useful if things got messy. Diana's smile was predatory. Recording without consent is illegal in Oregon. They just handed us another weapon. More allies emerged as the week progressed. A former client of Michael's from Los Angeles reached out through Thomas Bennett. I heard what happened, Jennifer Chun, CEO of a major tech company, said during their video call. Michael tried the same approach with my marketing director 2 years ago. When she rejected him, he attempted to sabotage our campaigns. Were there any formal complaints? Diana asked, pen poised. Better. We have emails, security footage from our office, and documented attempts to manipulate project outcomes. We kept it quiet to avoid scandal. But now, Jennifer's expression hardened. I'm tired of men, like him, using their position to prey on women, then playing the victim when caught. Robert arranged for Jennifer to fly to Portland, her evidence adding another layer to their case. Each new ally brought not just information, but a piece of the larger pattern they were building. The agency's HR director, Linda Martinez, provided another breakthrough. She'd been keeping a separate file on Michael's misconduct, waiting for the right moment to act. Look at these expense reports. Linda spread documents across Diana's desk. He's been double-billing clients, padding accounts, creating fake meetings. Adriana helped him doctor the paperwork. They thought nobody would notice the discrepancies. Robert studied the numbers, his architectural precision, finding patterns in the fraud. They used company funds for their affair, then billed clients to cover the theft. Diana added the documents to their growing arsenal. Financial fraud, corporate theft, conspiracy. They're facing more than just divorce proceedings. The final ally came from Rebecca's world. A nurse who had worked with Michael's wife at 3 different hospitals provided crucial character testimony. Rebecca's dedicated everything to those children, Sarah Parker stated firmly. Worked extra shifts to support their education while Michael spent money on designer suits and luxury hotels. Now he claims she's an unfit mother? I won't stand for it. Sarah provided detailed records of Rebecca's work schedule, proving she'd arranged her shifts around the children's needs, while Michael missed parent-teacher conferences for business meetings with Adriana. As their alliance grew stronger, Michael and Adriana's support system crumbled. Friends distanced themselves, colleagues avoided them in the office, and their professional reputations unraveled thread by thread. They're running out of options, Thomas reported during their final strategy session. The board meets Monday to discuss Michael's position. With the evidence we've gathered, termination is almost certain. Robert sat back, watching his allies coordinate their next moves. Diana organized the evidence into categories: financial misconduct, personal betrayal, professional fraud, pattern of behavior. Rebecca prepared her custody documentation, supported by testimony from teachers, nurses, and childcare providers. Catherine and Melissa stood ready to reveal years of Adriana's manipulations. You've built quite a team, Diana observed, looking around the room at their unexpected coalition. Most clients fight their battles alone. I'm an architect, Robert replied, his voice cold with purpose. I know the importance of a strong foundation. They thought they could demolish my life. I'm going to show them what a real demolition looks like. The storm they gathered was ready to break. Each ally represented a front in their war, each piece of evidence a weapon in their arsenal. Michael and Adriana had orchestrated their betrayal in secret, but their downfall would be public, comprehensive, and absolute. Through it all, Robert maintained his composure, his rage focused into destruction. They'd thought him weak, someone to be discarded when convenient. Now they would learn that true strength lies not in deception, but in justice served cold and complete. The pieces were in place. The allies were ready. Robert and his coalition prepared to unleash their carefully gathered evidence upon those who had wronged them. Chapter 7. The Unraveling. Monday morning arrived with the precision of a guillotine blade. Diana Matthews strode into the courthouse, Robert and Rebecca flanking her sides, each carrying folders of meticulously prepared evidence. Remember, Diana instructed, her voice sharp. No emotional displays. We let the evidence speak for itself. The timing was perfect. Divorce proceedings filed simultaneously with Rebecca's custody suit. Across town, Thomas Bennett presented his findings to the agency's board. Robert watched Adriana's face as she entered the courthouse with her lawyer, a young associate from a mid-tier firm. No Michael in sight. Her confident stride faltered when she saw the row of witnesses waiting. Catherine Monroe, Melissa, Jennifer Chun, and others, each ready to testify. Mrs. Kincaid, Diana's voice cut through the hallway. I trust you've reviewed our evidence files? No. Let me summarize. We have documentation of financial fraud, misappropriation of company resources, and a pattern of deceptive behavior spanning years. Adriana's lawyer paled. We should discuss this in private. Nothing is private anymore, Robert stated, his voice carrying the weight of controlled fury. You wanted an audience for your betrayal. Now you'll have one for your downfall. Inside the courtroom, Diana orchestrated their attack with brutal efficiency. Bank statements flashed across screens, showing thousands diverted from the renovation business to fund luxury hotel stays. Text messages revealed calculated deception. Witnesses detailed years of manipulation. Ms. Reeves, Diana addressed Adriana, using her maiden name deliberately. Can you explain these financial discrepancies in the renovation company accounts? Adriana shifted in her seat. Those were legitimate business expenses. Really? Diana projected a hotel receipt. So this $400 bottle of champagne was for a business meeting? At midnight? In a suite booked under Mr. Winter's name? The judge's expression hardened with each new piece of evidence. When Catherine took the stand, her testimony struck deep. Adriana confided in me for years, Catherine stated firmly. She bragged about manipulating men, about using her marriage to Robert as a stepping stone. I have text messages where she planned the timing of their affair to coincide with Michael's Chicago opportunity. Melissa's testimony followed, revealing Adriana's history of infidelity and manipulation. Each witness added another nail to the coffin of Adriana's credibility. Across town, the agency's board meeting turned into an execution. Thomas Bennett presented evidence of Michael's misconduct. Mr. Winters has systematically abused his position, Thomas explained, displaying spreadsheets of fraudulent expenses. He's cost this agency clients, compromised our integrity, and exposed us to potential lawsuits. The board's decision was unanimous. Michael and Adriana were terminated immediately, their access cards deactivated, their computers seized for forensic analysis. Robert's phone buzzed, a message from Michael. "We need to talk. Man to man. We can work something out?" He showed it to Diana, who smiled like a shark scenting blood. Perfect timing. Show the judge. Another attempt at manipulation. The Chicago agency withdrew their offer to Michael within hours of receiving the evidence package. Their HR director's email was terse. "After reviewing the documentation provided, we are rescinding our employment offer, effective immediately." The unraveling accelerated. Adriana's lawyer requested a recess, desperately seeking time to counter the mountain of evidence. The judge denied it. "Your Honor," Diana rose, "we have further evidence of illegal recordings made by the defendants, attempting to manufacture evidence of abuse." The judge's gaze could have frozen fire. "Proceed." By day's end, Adriana sat alone in the courthouse corridor, her makeup smeared, her designer outfit wrinkled. Her lawyer huddled with Diana, negotiating terms of surrender. Robert walked past her without a glance, his posture straight, his victory absolute. The woman who thought she could destroy him had destroyed herself instead. The unraveling wasn't just professional. Rebecca's custody hearing revealed Michael's pattern of neglect. Teachers testified about missed conferences. School nurses detailed unexplained absences during his visitation days. Dad canceled again. His daughter's voicemail played in court. "He said he had to work, but I saw pictures of him and that lady at a restaurant." Michael's attempts to paint Rebecca as an unfit mother backfired spectacularly. Hospital administrators praised her dedication to both her children and her patients. Colleagues testified about her careful scheduling, ensuring her shifts never interfered with important family events. The evidence Diana had gathered formed an inescapable web. Each attempt by Adriana or Michael to counter it only entangled them further. Their carefully constructed narrative of star-crossed lovers crumbled under the weight of documented deceit. The final blow came when Linda Martinez testified about the agency's internal investigation. "We found systematic abuse of company resources, falsified reports, and evidence of blackmail attempts against colleagues who threatened to expose the affair." Robert sat through it all, his face impassive, watching the destruction he'd orchestrated. This wasn't revenge. It was justice, served cold and complete. Chapter 8: Justice Served. The divorce proceedings moved with the brutal efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Diana Matthews stood before the judge, her presentation of evidence leaving no room for sympathy. "Your Honor, the documentation shows clear patterns of financial misconduct," Diana declared, displaying bank records. Mrs. Kincaid diverted company funds to finance her affair, forged documents to conceal her actions, and attempted to manipulate evidence for this very proceeding. Adriana's lawyer, overwhelmed by the avalanche of evidence, could only offer weak objections. Each was systematically destroyed by Diana's meticulous preparation. Furthermore, Diana continued, "We have proof of Mrs. Kincaid's attempts to sabotage Mr. Kincaid's professional reputation." She played a recording of Adriana attempting to convince a client to withdraw from a major architectural project. The judge's ruling was decisive. Robert received full control of the renovation business. All joint assets were divided heavily in his favor, and Adriana's request for alimony was denied. The court finds Mrs. Kincaid's conduct shows a clear pattern of deception and financial misconduct, the judge declared. Her attempts to claim hardship ring hollow in light of her deliberate actions to undermine the marriage and business partnership. Rebecca's custody hearing ran parallel, with similar devastating results for Michael. His attorney's attempts to question Rebecca's work schedule backfired when her hospital director testified. Mrs. Winters has never allowed her professional duties to interfere with her children's needs, the director stated firmly. Unlike Mr. Winters, who repeatedly canceled visitation for business meetings that turned out to be rendezvous with his mistress, the evidence of Michael's neglect mounted. School records showed missed events. Therapeutic evaluations detailed the children's emotional distress, and financial records revealed his prioritization of luxury expenses over his children's needs. "Dad, why did you miss my recital?" His daughter's recorded voice filled the courtroom. "Mom said you were working, but I saw you with that lady on Instagram." The custody ruling was brutal. Rebecca received primary custody, with Michael restricted to supervised visitation. His pattern of dishonesty and poor judgment weighed heavily against him. The court finds Mr. Winters has consistently prioritized his personal gratification over his children's well-being, the judge declared. Supervised visitation will continue until he demonstrates more responsible behavior. The professional consequences were equally severe. Both Michael and Adriana found themselves virtually unemployable in their field. The evidence of their misconduct had spread through industry networks, their reputations irreparably damaged. The board's decision is final, Thomas Bennett announced at the agency's staff meeting. The misconduct was too severe, the damage to our reputation too extensive. We've implemented new policies to prevent similar incidents. The Chicago agency's withdrawal of Michael's offer sparked a domino effect. Other potential employers, hearing of the scandal, quietly removed them from consideration. Their dream of a fresh start crumbled into dust. Robert watched it all unfold with cold satisfaction. In his office, he reviewed the final divorce decree, each page a testament to his systematic dismantling of their betrayal. "The renovation company's all yours," Diana reported, handling the last of the paperwork. She tried to claim sweat equity, but the evidence of her misappropriation killed that argument. Their professional isolation began to strain Michael and Adriana's relationship. Without the excitement of secrecy or the promise of advancement, the fantasy began to crumble. "They're fighting constantly," Rebecca reported during a meeting with Diana. He blames her for exposing their affair at the wedding. She blames him for losing the Chicago position. Robert's response was indifferent. "Let them destroy each other. They've earned it." The financial pressure mounted. Legal bills piled up, their savings drained, and their expensive lifestyle became unsustainable. Michael's child support payments further strained their resources. "Mr. Winters, the court ordered payment is due," Diana reminded Michael's lawyer. "His current financial difficulties do not negate his obligations to his children." The justice served wasn't just legal. It was social and professional annihilation. Their attempts to paint themselves as victims of circumstance fell apart under the weight of evidence. Each court ruling, each professional rejection, each financial setback tightened the noose they'd placed around their own necks. "You should feel vindicated," Diana said to Robert after the final hearing. "Vindication implies I needed their judgment to know my worth," Robert replied. "This was about consequences, nothing more." The reckoning they faced was comprehensive. Michael's supervised visitation meant weekly reminders of his failures as a father. Adriana's attempts to find work in marketing met with polite rejections. Her reputation preceded her. Robert watched their downfall from a distance, neither celebrating nor commenting. His silence spoke volumes. He didn't need to gloat. The evidence had done its work. Chapter 9: New Beginnings. 1 year passed since the wedding that sparked the implosion. Robert sat in his new office, reviewing plans for an upcoming project. His firm had made him junior partner, impressed by his handling of personal crisis with unwavering professionalism. "The Thompson development needs your touch," his senior partner said, dropping off new contracts. "They specifically requested you. Said they admired how you handled yourself during the divorce, showed integrity under pressure." Robert's new house in the Forest Heights neighborhood reflected his success, modern, minimal, designed by his own hand. Max had adjusted well to their new home, his favorite spot being the expansive back garden. "You've turned this around impressively," Rebecca commented during one of their regular strategy meetings. Now focused on business rather than revenge. She'd been promoted to head nurse, her professional life flourishing as she raised her children. "Success is the best revenge," Robert replied, reviewing their latest project proposals. Their shared experience had forged an unexpected partnership. She referred medical clients for his architectural services. He connected her with his business network. The aftermath of their revenge played out exactly as planned. Adriana had retreated to her hometown, living with her parents while working entry-level marketing jobs at local businesses. Her attempts to contact Robert grew increasingly desperate. "I know I hurt you," her final email read. "I realize now what I threw away. We could try again, start fresh. I've changed." Robert's response was simple. He forwarded the message to Diana without comment. His lawyer's reply to Adriana was professionally brutal. "Any further contact will be considered harassment and dealt with accordingly." Michael's fall was equally complete. Unable to secure positions in major agencies, he relocated to Boise, accepting a mid-level creative position at a small local firm. His relationships with his children remained strained, his supervised visits a constant reminder of his failures. "The kids ask about him less now," Rebecca shared during a business lunch. "They're healing, building their own lives. Sometimes that means leaving toxic people behind." Robert's renovation business thrived under his sole direction. He specialized in high-end transformations, his reputation for integrity attracting wealthy clients. The profits Adriana had once siphoned for her affair now funded expansion into commercial projects. "Karma comes full circle," Diana observed during their final meeting, closing out the last of the legal proceedings. "They thought they were using you as a stepping stone. Instead, they stepped off a cliff." The story of their downfall spread through professional circles, a cautionary tale about betrayal's consequences. Robert never spoke of it directly. He didn't need to. His success spoke volumes, while their absence from the industry spoke even louder. In his quiet moments, Robert reflected not on the pain of betrayal, but on the strength it revealed. He discovered that integrity wasn't a weakness to be exploited, but a foundation that couldn't be shaken. The photo of him and Max at their new home's garden sat on his desk, a reminder that loyalty, like respect, had to be earned and maintained. He'd rebuilt his life not by dwelling on betrayal, but by focusing on growth. His phone buzzed, another high-profile client requesting his services. He'd learned that true power wasn't in seeking revenge, but in living so well that revenge became unnecessary. His success wasn't built on their destruction. Their destruction was simply a consequence of crossing someone who understood that respect and loyalty were non-negotiable. Robert's new beginning wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about using it as a foundation for something stronger. He'd shown that a man of principle couldn't be broken by betrayal, only strengthened by it. The sun set on his garden as he reviewed plans for his next project. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to build something lasting. He'd learned that while love might make you vulnerable, self-respect and integrity were weapons that no one could take from you unless you let them. In the end, Robert Kincaid hadn't just survived betrayal. He'd turned it into a masterclass in consequences. His revenge hadn't been about destruction, but about justice served with precision and completeness. He'd rebuilt his life on his own terms, leaving his betrayers to live with the ruins of their choices. The story ended not with their defeat, but with his triumph. Not through violence or emotional outbursts, but through the calculated execution of justice. He'd shown that true strength lay not in forgiveness, but in ensuring that actions had consequences, and that betrayal carried a price too high to be worth paying. Epilogue. 5 years later, Robert Kincaid stood atop the Morrison Tower, his latest architectural achievement in downtown Portland. At 43, his success had exceeded even his own careful planning. Kincaid Architectural Group had grown from a one-man operation to a 30-person firm, specializing in sustainable luxury developments that transform city skylines. "The view justifies the investment," James Morrison said, joining him on the observation deck. The former boss was now a frequent collaborator, their partnership strengthened by shared values and mutual respect. 38 floors of possibilities, Robert replied, studying the city below. His firm occupied the top 3 floors, a testament to his rise in the industry. The renovation business had evolved into a separate entity, Kincaid Properties, managing high-end real estate developments across the Pacific Northwest. The years had been good to Robert. His hair showed touches of distinguished gray at the temples. His face carried the confident lines of a man who'd faced betrayal and emerged stronger. He wore success like a well-tailored suit, comfortable but never complacent. "Did you hear about Michael Winters?" James asked, breaking their comfortable silence. Robert raised an eyebrow, inviting elaboration without showing particular interest. "He's working at a small print shop in Boise now, designing local business flyers, restaurant menus, that sort of thing. Quite a fall from creative director." The news warranted neither celebration nor comment. Robert had moved beyond revenge to something more valuable: absolute indifference to those who'd once threatened his world. His phone buzzed, a message from Rebecca Winters, now head of nursing at Portland General and a respected healthcare administrator. Their friendship had evolved into a successful business partnership. Her medical facility design consultancy complemented his architectural expertise, leading to several award-winning hospital projects. "Meeting with the Seattle developers tomorrow. Children's hospital project looks promising." Rebecca's transformation had been remarkable. The quiet nurse had become a powerful advocate for healthcare design innovation. Her children, now teenagers, were thriving. The daughter excelled in science, planning to follow her mother into medicine. The son showed artistic talent, though thankfully nothing like his father's superficial charm. Thomas Bennett had retired from the agency 2 years ago, but still served on Kincaid Architectural Group's board of directors. His experience proved invaluable as Robert's firm expanded into new markets. "Remember when you were just designing individual buildings?" Thomas teased during their monthly board meetings. "Now you're reshaping entire city blocks." Diana Matthews remained Portland's most feared divorce attorney, her reputation further enhanced by her handling of Robert's case. She kept in touch, occasionally referring clients who needed architectural services after their own fresh starts. "Your case is still my gold standard," she told him during their occasional lunches. Perfect example of justice served cold and complete. Catherine Monroe had become a close friend and valuable connection. Her art gallery now occupied the ground floor of one of Robert's buildings, showcasing emerging artists in a space that blended classic and contemporary design elements. "We're featuring Julian Hayes next month," she mentioned during their last meeting. "Remember him? The artist from the gallery where you met." Robert nodded, appreciating the irony. The artist whose exhibition had introduced him to Adriana now drew crowds to Catherine's gallery, his works commanding impressive prices. Melissa, Adriana's younger sister, had cut ties with her family and built a successful therapy practice in Seattle. She occasionally consulted on Robert's projects, offering insights into designing spaces for mental health facilities. "Sometimes the best family isn't the one you're born into," she told him during their last collaboration. "It's the one you build through trust and respect." Max, now in his senior years, still accompanied Robert to work each day. The loyal retriever had his own bed in Robert's corner office, his presence a reminder that some bonds grew stronger with time. As for the betrayers, Adriana's attempts to rebuild her career had failed spectacularly. After several years of entry-level positions in her hometown, she tried launching her own marketing consultancy. It collapsed within months, her reputation proving an insurmountable barrier. Her last attempt to contact Robert came through Catherine. "She's working as a social media manager for a small boutique," Catherine reported. "Still living with her parents. Asked if I'd put in a good word with you about some marketing ideas for the gallery." Robert's response was unchanged silence. Michael's fall had been even more dramatic. The small Boise agency had let him go after 6 months, citing cultural fit issues. He bounced between increasingly minor positions, his pattern of workplace relationships following him despite his attempts at reinvention. His children maintained minimal contact, their supervised visits eventually tapering off as they grew old enough to make their own choices. His daughter declined his invitation to her high school graduation. His son refused to use the Winters name, preferring his mother's maiden name on school records. The Chicago agency that had once offered him a position had grown into a major player in the industry. Their CEO occasionally contracted Robert's firm for their office expansions, a delicious irony lost on no one. The renovation business that Adriana had once used to fund her affair now generated millions in annual revenue. Robert had expanded into luxury apartment complexes and boutique hotels, each project adding to his reputation for excellence and integrity. His new home, a masterpiece of modern architecture he designed himself, stood as a testament to his philosophy: build on solid foundations, use quality materials, and never compromise on integrity. The garden where Max played had grown into a private paradise, featuring a koi pond and meditation area where Robert often reviewed plans for new projects. Diana's prediction had proven accurate. The story of his revenge became legend in Portland's professional circles. Not because of any dramatic confrontations or public scenes, but because of its precise, methodical execution. He demonstrated that true power lay not in emotional outbursts, but in calculated consequences. James and Catherine Monroe's marriage had strengthened through the years. Their anniversary parties, once tainted by memories of betrayal, became celebrations of enduring loyalty. Robert attended each one, his presence a reminder that some friendships grew stronger through adversity. The agency that had once employed Michael and Adriana underwent a complete transformation. Thomas's successor implemented strict policies regarding workplace relationships and financial oversight. They still lost some business when the scandal resurfaced occasionally, a lingering reminder of the importance of corporate integrity. Linda Martinez, the HR director who'd helped expose Michael's misconduct, had gone on to establish a consulting firm specializing in workplace ethics and harassment prevention. Robert's firm was among her first clients, setting industry standards for professional conduct. Jennifer Chin's tech company became a major client of Kincaid Architectural Group, commissioning innovative office spaces across the country. Her decision to support Robert's revenge had evolved into a profitable long-term partnership. "Success is the best revenge," she'd said during their last project meeting. But success built on integrity? That's immortality. Robert's approach to life remained unchanged. Build with purpose, maintain high standards, and ensure that those who violated trust faced appropriate consequences. His calendar filled months in advance with clients who appreciated not just his architectural vision, but his reputation for unwavering principles. Professional organizations regularly invited him to speak about business ethics and leadership. He never mentioned his personal story directly, but his emphasis on integrity and consequences resonated with audiences who knew the background. The legal documents Diana had prepared became templates for other attorneys handling similar cases. She created a comprehensive approach to dealing with workplace affairs that involved financial misconduct, setting new standards in divorce law. Rebecca's children, now approaching college age, occasionally interned at Robert's firm during summers. They represented a new generation that understood the value of loyalty and the cost of betrayal, their mother's triumph serving as a constant inspiration. Max, though slowing with age, remained a beloved fixture at the office. Employees kept treats in their desks for him, and clients often requested his presence during meetings, claiming he brought good luck to project discussions. Robert's personal life reflected his professional philosophy, built on careful choices and maintained through consistent actions. He dated occasionally, but remained focused on his empire's growth, finding satisfaction in creation rather than fleeting relationships. The renovation company's original project files, which Adriana had once used to hide her affair expenses, were preserved as a reminder. New employees received training in financial oversight and ethical business practices, the company's history serving as a case study in consequences. Industry publications regularly featured Kincaid Architectural Group's projects, praising not just their design innovation, but their ethical business practices. Robert's insistence on transparency and accountability became as much a part of his brand as his architectural style. Thomas, though retired, still mentored young professionals through a program Robert had established at his firm. They taught future leaders that success came not just from talent, but from unwavering adherence to principles. Catherine's gallery thrived, becoming a cultural cornerstone in Portland's art scene. She never accepted any of Adriana's attempts to submit marketing proposals, her loyalty to Robert extending beyond friendship to professional boundaries. The professional networks that had once gossiped about the scandal now pointed to Robert's success as proof that integrity ultimately trumped manipulation. His story became a cautionary tale not because of the revenge, but because of the stark contrast between his rise and his betrayer's falls. 5 years had transformed Robert's revenge into something more significant than personal justice. He created a legacy built on the principle that actions have consequences, that trust once broken could not be repaired, and that true success came from unwavering adherence to one's principles. As he stood atop his tower, watching the city lights emerge in the gathering dusk, Robert reflected on the journey. The betrayal that might have destroyed a weaker man had instead forged him into something stronger. He built not just buildings, but a testament to the power of principled revenge. Success so complete that it rendered the original wound irrelevant. Max wagged his tail gently, reminding him of their evening routine. It was time to head home, to the life he'd built from the ashes of betrayal. Tomorrow would bring new projects, new challenges, new opportunities to demonstrate that the best revenge wasn't just living well. It was living with unshakable integrity while watching your betrayers fade into deserved obscurity. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.